They said Rome could not lose, and for a long time that belief felt as solid as stone, as permanent as the roads they carved across continents. Yet in 53 BC, that certainty began to thin beneath a desert sky that did not care about eagles or banners or the weight of history. And when Marcus Licinius Crassus marched east with his legions, polished shields catching the light and armor ringing softly with every synchronized step, he believed he was walking toward glory, not into a lesson that would echo through centuries, because Rome had defeated kingdoms before, had crushed rebellions, had turned distant lands into provinces stamped with its authority, and nothing in its long record suggested that the sands beyond the Euphrates would be any different. Yet the desert does not announce its dangers. It stretches wide and open and deceptively calm, offering no forests for ambush and no mountains for concealment. Just horizon after horizon beneath a sky that seems endless and watchful. And it was there, in that vast quiet, that something waited, something patient and disciplined in a way Rome did not recognize. Because Parthia did not fight like Rome, did not anchor itself in rigid lines of infantry or measure strength by how long men could stand shoulder to shoulder. Parthia moved, it flowed, it treated distance as a weapon and time as an ally. And while Roman boots pressed confidently into foreign soil, Parthian riders traced slow circles beyond sight, observing, calculating, letting ambition carry the invaders forward, and Crassus, wealthy beyond imagination and determined to carve his name beside Pompey and Caesar, brushed aside the subtle warnings that drifted through campfires and private counsel, because ambition has a way of muting caution, and every mile east felt like an investment in legend. Yet legends are fragile when built on assumption, and Rome assumed that any enemy worth facing would stand and fight in the open, would meet discipline with discipline, formation with formation. But what appeared instead were distant dust clouds that rose and vanished like mirages, flashes of movement that dissolved before engagement, riders who approached just close enough to be seen and then slipped away. And the first days of uncertainty felt almost trivial, an inconvenience rather than a threat, until inconvenience began to accumulate, until scouts returned with conflicting reports and the land itself seemed to resist predictability. And Carrhae, an otherwise unremarkable settlement, slowly transformed into the center of a widening tension, because geography does not need grandeur to become historic. It only needs timing. And as Roman standards advanced, gleaming eagles cutting against the pale sky. Parthian strategy unfolded not in explosive clashes, but in measured restraint, allowing fatigue to seep into heavy armor, allowing thirst to grow sharper beneath the sun, allowing doubt to find small spaces inside disciplined ranks. And Serena, the Parthian commander, remembered for composure as much as cunning, understood that he did not need to rush toward collision. He needed only to let Rome move deeper into unfamiliar rhythm, because the battlefield was not merely ground, but perception, and perception can be reshaped without a single decisive charge. And when the first real engagement began, it did not resemble the battles Roman veterans expected. There were no opposing walls of shields grinding together, no immediate collision of structured lines. Instead, there was motion, constant motion. Riders sweeping forward and away, arrows arcing from distances that felt intangible, sound carrying strangely across open plains so that direction blurred and certainty dissolved, and Roman formations tightened instinctively, shields overlapping, commanders shouting for cohesion. Yet cohesion felt heavy against speed, and the desert amplified every hesitation, turning seconds into doubts and doubts into weight. And as the sun refused to shift quickly enough to mark progress. Time stretched into something oppressive, and the soldiers who had once marched with synchronized confidence now found themselves reacting to an enemy that refused to behave predictably. And there is a unique strain that emerges when training meets unpredictability, when discipline confronts fluidity, because Rome's strength lay in structure, in the belief that order could tame chaos. Yet here chaos was deliberate, engineered, almost elegant in its repetition, and the psychological strain deepened as Parthian riders appeared calm, even composed, projecting an unsettling ease as if the entire encounter were unfolding according to a script already written. And that realization, slow and creeping, began to alter morale more than any physical clash could, because soldiers can endure hardship when they trust the outcome. But uncertainty erodes that trust grain by grain, and night brought cooler air but no relief. Fires burned low and conversations quieted whenever officers approached. Whispers carried questions that no one wanted spoken too loudly. Were they isolated? Had reinforcements fallen behind? Did the enemy intend to engage fully or simply continue this relentless dance? And beneath the dark sky, the desert seemed larger than before, swallowing the edges of camp and reminding every man that Rome's authority did not extend naturally into this expanse. And somewhere beyond the reach of torchlight, Parthian riders repositioned with patience, maintaining pressure without overextension, allowing tension to mature like something cultivated. And by morning, the atmosphere had shifted almost imperceptibly, because confidence, once absolute, now required effort. And when the renewed engagement began, it carried a different tone. No longer the assured advance of an unstoppable force, but the careful movement of an army aware that it stood inside another's design. And Carrhae revealed its true weight, not in spectacle, but in reversal, the subtle inversion of expectation, where Rome's methods felt cumbersome against mobility, where heavy armor became liability and rigid formation struggled to pin down fluid opposition. And though the empire had faced adversity before, this encounter challenged identity itself, because Rome believed its approach to war was universal, adaptable to any terrain, any culture, any opponent. Yet here was a force that refused assimilation into Roman logic. And as the day progressed under an unyielding sky, the realization settled quietly that this was not merely a difficult campaign, but a confrontation with limits. And limits are dangerous to empires that define themselves by expansion. And while no single moment shattered Rome's image in that desert, the accumulation of doubt, fatigue, and strategic miscalculation carved something deeper than a tactical loss. It carved memory, the kind that lingers in political chambers and military reforms long after dust has settled. And Carrhae became less about a battlefield and more about a shift in perception. The day Rome learned that dominance is not immunity, that reputation is not protection, and that ambition without understanding can lead even the mightiest legions into silence beneath a sky that offers no reassurance. And in that silence, long before messengers carried the news westward, Rome's greatest defeat had already begun, not in the collapse of formation, but in the quiet recognition that the world beyond its borders would not always bend to its will.